Thanksgiving.
Welcome, everybody. Alicia, this one is specifically for you.
Yes, this was something that you had recommended, mentioned, requested.
Without actually recommending it, it was said that it was her favorite movie, and we were actually in October coming up with our specials and what we were wanting to do for the
Trying
November
to get
series.
on the ball and be
Ahead
good adults and
well, I mean,
pre-plan.
And so you had mentioned Children of the Corn being one of your favorite movies. So here we are. Welcome to the edition of Children of the Corn.
Yes, our Thanksgiving special is one of my favorite.
Most memorable to most of us.
Yeah, well, and who hasn't been on a road trip going past all the cornfields and not thought about that movie, or myself personally wondered if there was a dinky little town somewhere out there where children had taken over.
What's that other movie that I can't remember with the blonde platinum hair kids?
Village of the Damned. Also a very good movie. Very, very good movie.
Yes. They kind of came out around the same time period, right?
I think so. At least within the same, era.
And they were kind of a knockoff because Children of the Corn came first, if I remember right.
I don't know if it was a knockoff so much as, it just, they utilized children as the main the main fear factor.
Oh, either way, I grew up in Iowa, and corn everywhere. Children of the Corn held a very special place in my heart.
It was filmed in Sioux City, Iowa.
Yes.
Which is odd because it was supposed to have been. It was supposed to have taken place, I believe, in like Kansas or Nebraska.
Nebraska, if I remember right.
But it was filmed in Iowa.
Which happens more often than you think. But
how does that work?
Now, how do you pronounce Fritz's last name? The director.
Kirsch.
It's Kirsch?
I believe it's Kirsch or Kirsch. I think it's Kirsch.
Now, we have watched. So we started off with the first one and just kind of progressed through. And we're going to talk about two specific ones. Now, there are 8 of them out there, if I remember correctly. We're going to be talking about the original 1984.
The best versus the worst.
And then we're going to be talking about Children of the Corn Genesis. Right? Genesis? Yeah, we'll get to that one here in a minute.
Yeah.
However, Children of the Corn and this is another one of those ones that back in the 80s did really well for its box office.
It did great. Had a budget of $800,000.
Yes.
And their gross in the U.S. and Canada was
like $2 million something, wasn't it?
It ended up near, I believe, somewhere close to 15.
Well, oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, total gross was like 14.5.
Yeah.
But box office first day was like $2 million.
No, box office.
I thought.
Box office first day. It was 2, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought so. Or their first week or something. It was pretty decent for being in the early 80s. This film was.
It was insane, but you also got to think by the time this came out in 1984, it was released March 9th, which. Funny, happens to be my baby sister's birthday.
Yes.
Not that year. I mean, she wasn't born
later.
until several years later.
Yeah.
But it was. I thought that was funny when I came across this. Now, this was adapted after one of Stephen King's short stories.
Yeah, one of his short stories.
The Night Shift. It was a book that was a series of a bunch of his short stories. And if you pay close attention in the opening scenes, when they're driving down the road, on the dash is a copy of Stephen King's The Night Shift, which contains the short story of Children of the Corn.
Now, one of the main actresses, Linda Hamilton.
Linda Hamilton from
Terminator. Which, one of my favorite series growing up. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Terminator,
I'll be back.
That was.
Come with me if you want to live. That sounded more like
Dracula. That was very Dracula. That was it. No. Very Transylvania of you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Schwarzenegger. I'm no good.
Horrible.
I am no good with accents.
Anyways, that was the Terminator was a series that my dad and I had watched when I was a kid, And so Miss Hamilton was a favorite actress of mine.
She was so pretty. Oh
and
my
she
God,
stuck
she was
throughout
beautiful.
the entire series of Terminator. So she's one of the main actresses.
You know, she also worked with Ron Perlman, the guy who played Hellboy, in a TV series called Beauty and the Beast.
I think I knew that.
Yeah, and I
think we had
remember
talked about
watching that TV show and just absolutely loving it. And years later, streaming decided to put that series back up. And I'm sitting down rewatching this going, wow,
Yeah,
I
I
liked
remember
this as a kid. Ugh.
But with Children of the Corn, it's one of those that, you know, any particular child can have a creep factor.
Yes.
However,
children are creepy to begin with. Like when you're standing at the grocery store in line and you
they're
got that
just staring
toddler
at
in
you.
front of you that's just looking at you, just.
They have a creep factor. Now, when there's one, it's like, well, kick. But then when there's like 30 of them, that's when that
Yeah.
mentality of like, oh, like there's nothing you can do because
Yes, and
numbers matter.
Well, and that's what I found interesting about this is you take the most innocent and most unassuming of beings.
Of creatures.
And make them terrifying.
And so Malachi.
Yes.
I'm going to mention Malachi.
Played by Courtney Gaines.
In which Isaac, John Franklin,
yes.
which he was when they filmed the movie, because
he was 24.
That's what I was going to say. He was in his mid-20s playing as the cult leader. And then you have Malachi, who is his right-hand go-to man, basically his bruiser, his guy that he sends
He's
out.
the reason that Isaac was able to keep his hands clean.
Right.
Malachi did all the dirty work for him.
Malachi was my favorite character.
Malachi was...
And even though he betrays Isaac in the end because he, wants to basically take over because...
That's the vibe you get from it, but I think a lot of it is he started catching on to Isaac's bullpucky.
And then once he was shown... He who walks behind the rose finally comes out and takes Isaac as his sacrifice. That made him, like, in his head click, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
No.
Which, in the short story, they actually give a description. King actually gave a pretty good description of what he who walked behind the rose looks like. Green monster with bright red eyes.
Now, they did not portray that in the movie.
It was not in the budget.
It was a sparkly fog.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me a bit of Evil Dead.
Yeah, a
where
little
you
bit.
just have the camera following you and you don't really get a look, but you have that sense of fear.
Right, because it goes up into the personal bubble and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah.
Or they have the loud noise and the
There's
ruffles.
There's something about
happen.
that's a bit more terrifying than actually seeing the monster.
In which they don't show till the very end.
Yes.
When it takes
I liked that.
Yes.
I did. I liked that.
And again, watching it when I was a kid, that fog goo-like figure that takes over Isaac, that was scary.
Yes.
Because it was a mysterious
how do you stop something like that? You can't just pull the covers over your head.
Right? That shield does not work.
No. That's only for monsters. Under the bed, make sure you tuck your feet up underneath the covers.
Make sure you feed them.
Yes, make sure you feed... What did you feed your monster?
Candy.
You actually put candy under your bed for your monster?
Yeah. Well,
really?
Actually, I had a race car bed, so there was no under part, but there was the sides that were really tall. So if I had a piece of candy left over,
piece of candy.
You can.
Screw you, James Woods.
So I'd put the piece of candy or something of a sort right on the edge of my bed.
Huh.
And then. Yeah.
I didn't feed mine anything because I didn't believe in monsters.
Well, the candy was always there the next day, unless I knocked it off, but still it made me feel better.
All right. So anyway, this was definitely one of those movies that was scary but unbelievable at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. And you have basically this couple that ends up going to this town, which then find out it's been deserted, and then you have the kids that adults.
They've completely taken over. All the adults are dead. Yeah. And
And-
I'm still kind of in that sense of
And they were going to
understand.
sacrifice him, right? Like,
Yeah.
At the end,
Yeah.
she was going to be sacrificed, and then the boyfriend came in and
They kept
saved
calling
the
him
day.
the Outlander.
The Outlander. That's what it was.
I still have a very difficult time grasping whether or not it would be even feasible for
Absolutely
a bunch
not.
of children to take over a group of adults.
Absolutely not.
Especially an entire town.
Right, but then again, they had the belief in the power of he who walks behind the rose with them, guiding them, telling Isaac what needs to be done, who needs to be sacrificed.
That also comes back to what we were saying in our last video about how children are extremely impressionable. So with Isaac, being a teenager, all the younger children would look up to him.
Right.
And if he's coming to them saying that a God has spoken to him and told him that this is the way things work, this is the way things go.
This is the way things need to be.
The grown-ups are wrong. They're poisoning us. We have to get rid of the grown-ups and start anew. I can see how children would go into that.
But that's how cults happen, and that's even with adults.
But children are still so very innocent. And they still have yet to really develop that mentality to be murderous. Now, that's not to say that there aren't murdering little bastards out there.
Right.
I mean, you can look them up all day, every day. Mary Bell.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't see the realism behind it.
No, but
maybe I'm overanalyzing it. I mean, it is still terrifying. And I definitely put it on the list as a Thanksgiving movie.
Absolutely, because again, the corn, everybody relates corn with Thanksgiving time. Everybody, just like turkey is the Thanksgiving bird. I mean, you see corn during that time, it's harvest season, that is all part of the Thanksgiving.
And automatically you think of that. So, exactly.
Now, with it being the original, that again is a favorite of mine. That's a 4 out of 5, easy.
I mean, there are little things about it that remind you, okay, cheesy 1980s.
Of course.
But there's something very comforting about that movie because you've been watching it forever.
And it's a classic.
It's a comforting movie. It is a classic, and it's definitely one of King's best. It also stands as the one that has the most continuations out of every one of the others that have been adapted to movie.
Now, that being said...
Oh, Lord. Please don't.
Jumping forward to the worst one.
Don't do it. It hurts.
Children of the Corn Genesis.
It's painful.
So
painful.
When you watch the series, they stay true to, I mean...
a majority of it, they stay very true to the memory of Isaac and everything.
The characters change. You have new leaders. You have new people, yada, yada, yada. However, in Genesis... You have this couple that their car breaks down and they are out in the middle of the heated desert and they come across this house with this weird dude that has basically a mail order bride that is there. And it's a young couple. They probably look in their late 20s. So they look...
The couple that's broken down.
Yeah, the couple that's broken down. Now, the people that live in the house, he's like 30 years older than her. It's an old man, and then again his mail order bride. And so you have this couple that is already weirded out by this.
Yeah, they're the entire thing oozes creepy.
Yes.
And there's a lot of stuff
that the old man's doing that's a creep factor.
Well, and how many times were there that I sat there and I was like, stop it, don't do that, don't do that, what are you doing? What do you mean you're just going to leave her in there?
Right, the typical cheesy horror almost.
Yeah, making dumb white people choices.
Yeah. But this entire movie is static in this house.
Oh my God, it's so stale.
And
it's weird because the very opening of the movie... kind of ran parallel with the original.
For a short time.
They discuss a town
Yep.
that's near Gatlinburg.
Yep.
Which is where the original Children of the Corn took place.
Yes.
Man's coming back from war, and he comes home to an empty house and murderous children everywhere. That is the last connection you find to the original. And from there on out, nothing else connects.
Nothing. And basically, it's this the girlfriend who basically ends up following the old man around, thinking that he has a child locked up in the barn, which ends up, and this is all spoilers, ends up being the mail order's son, which she locked up in there.
To protect him from
to protect
her
her
husband.
son. From the husband, who is, from what I gathered,
Creep factor.
No, but he's also the leader, because in the barn was you had the pier, all the seats and the gathering, and there's no children throughout this entire movie until the end. The last 2 minutes of the movie, there are no kids. There's no children in the corn. Anything. You're in.
There's not even corn.
No, there's nothing to do with children in the corn, and even at the end, when the couple basically finally escapes from the house,
you've got that kind of feeling,
but
it doesn't last.
Then they get caught, get brought back to the house, and then that's when there's children everywhere, all over this property all of a sudden, and then the movie ends.
It made no sense.
It was
There were holes in the
horrible.
plot left and right. The plot was almost non-existent to begin with.
No.
Had no connection to the original Children of the Corn 1 through 4.
No.
And 1 through 4 had the most connection to the original.
Right. They stuck true.
After 4, it kind of tapered away, but they were still entertaining.
Right.
Genesis is by far the most low-budget piece of crap to come out of that entire string.
It was horrible.
It was awful. How we survived it.
And again, with us loving our originals and like continuances and everything, again, this was the worst one out of any.
It was very much like Halloween 3.
Had nothing to do with it.
Had nothing at all
Yep.
to do with it. How are you?
How's
Troll
your name?
2.
Right.
Troll 2. There weren't even trolls.
It's one of those where it was its own thing. And
it ran off the coattails of the original.
Yep. And so that is a definite 1 star.
Yes.
Watch it if you will. But
I mean, if you already have, we're incredibly sorry. And we feel your pain. And
yes.
we have great sympathy for the fact that vast amounts of your soul has packed its bags and just said, bye.
Hour and a
Bye,
half.
Felicia.
Hour and a half. No, what was it? Like an hour and 40 minutes that we'll never get back?
Yeah. It was
it's not as bad as Troll 2.
It was a cinematic atrocity.
But yeah, it was pretty bad. So that is a definite 1 star.
Definitely a 1.
If you're a Children of the Corn fan, I'm not going to recommend it.
Yeah, no, don't do it. It really has nothing to do with it at all. The acting was pretty bad. The scenarios.
There was no gore to be gore. There was
no gore at all.
There was no killing. There was no sacrificing. There was no suspense.
Yeah. I don't even think it could be considered a horror movie.
No. I don't even know if it could be considered a suspense movie, because after the first half hour, after the creep factor of the old man was gone, it was basically just
boring.
It was just basically hopping back and forth on the property to different locations on the property that had nothing to do with the entire movie.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Like,
the only portion of the entire thing was just frustrating.
And then waiting for the cop to get there, then all of a sudden the cop goes out into space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you heard me correctly. A cop pulls up because they call the cops. They finally get a hold of a police officer, and then 18 hours later, the cop finally shows up, and the old man uses his power.
No, I think it was the child.
Oh, it was the child out in the barn. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was the child out in the shed.
Uses his power to make this cop go up into space. And then when the credits are rolling at the end...
The girl asks the boy, is he going to come back down? And the kid goes, maybe.
Yeah. And then during the credits, the cop's
body hits the ground. I mean, it was gone for a good day and a half.
Yeah,
I don't know what was even happening.
I don't know.
The only part of the entire movie that made it even remotely worth watching was when the girl and her husband made their escape. You think everything's okay, and all of a sudden there's a car wreck. He dies.
Yep.
And one of the old guy's little disciples snags her up and takes her back.
Yep, it very Texas Chainsaw.
Very! Or House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah, where you think
it
that
really
they
was very
escape
reminiscent of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
run, rabbit, run.
Would not recommend that one.
No.
Stick to the originals.
Stick to the originals.
So
yeah.
that's our opinion on that one. So.
Yep. Well, hopefully, every single one of you are out there enjoying your Thanksgiving, consuming your turkey, and being gluttonous asses. Enjoy it while you can. The holidays will soon be over, and that extra 40 pounds that you're putting on eating those cookies silently in the closet, hoarding them to yourself,
I don't eat cookies.
you're going to have to get that all off before you need your summer bod back.
Thank you, Alicia, for the secret recommendation.
Yes,
This
thank
one's
you
for
very
you.
much. This was a good one.
So,
And happy Thanksgiving to every single one of you. Don't forget to be grateful.
thank you guys.
You have very pleasant nightmares.